You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeromy.
I'm Vinz.
I'm James.
And this is your Geek Fix.
So with all of the costs right now in relation to fuel and all the limitations in relation to fuel, and I don't know if you heard about this, but right now in California, they are pushing for a requirement that by 2035, all new passenger cars and light trucks sold in the state have to be electric vehicles or other, emissions-free models, and which I think is interesting, because they're not cheap.
No,
but at the same time, I was thinking about it, and I thought, what would be interesting to talk about is fuel sources, not just available fuel sources in the world, but fictional fuel sources. Those from the things that we love. So here's my question for you, and we'll go into discussion on this one, which is, if you had the choice of a form of fuel of the following, which one do you think you would choose to power your car? Would you use fusion core from Fallout, Mr. Fusion from Back to the Future, ion engine from Star Wars, the dilithium crystals from Star Trek, Kryptonite from Superman, or an arc reactor from Iron Man? Which just out of curiosity, when you're hearing those, what would be the first one that you would roll with?
the one that radiates most. The one that
so without going into detail just yet, like which one would you want to go with, just based on from the list, first time around, just first hearing it, which one kind of sticks out to you as a source that you'd be like, yep, that's what I want to run my vehicle?
Probably Mr. Fusion.
Mr. Fusion, you're saying? And what did you say, James?
The Arc Reactor.
Arc Reactor? Those are good ones. Those are both good ones. Now, we actually ran a poll on this, at least on 4 of the types of fuel that we're talking about. 69% said fusion core, 19% said Mr. Fusion, 10% said ion engine, and 6% said dilithium crystals. Also show some of the comments that people left during the podcast. But we just barely talked not too long ago about Fallout, so we got to talk a little bit about the fusion cores, which I have one behind me. Here we go.
Yep. Mine is way over there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you got one over there. And I got a little mini version. Now that I think about it, pull this out. When you open it up, this is the flea, the fusion flea, and inside the fusion flea, you get a little tiny one inside of the back here that lights up. So at the same time, when I was thinking about it, that's the only one that I can think of that we actually have an example where it does run vehicles. But at the same time, comparatively, I did some research to find out what the equivalents of energy are for each of these things. And so we can kind of compare them, as well as some of the cost and benefit to using them. So for example, if we were to talk about electric cars, which is the only way we can talk about most of these, because they're the replacement for gas. So I'm using the equivalent of what they would produce in watts or kilowatts. And so the fusion core, how long does it run in the game, to your knowledge? Because I got some variable responses on our poll that we ran, as far as how long people thought that it was supposed to run.
It depends on where you put it in, right?
Let's go with the power armor. That's mostly where we see it used.
Power armor depends as well how you used it in the game, if I remember correctly.
Because it could keep a building running for quite a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you remove them from buildings, if I remember correctly.
I did my estimates based on how it runs the power armor. So it runs power armor for about 10 hours in game, 2 hours in real time. Is what Bethesda quotes it as. Mm-hmm. So I'm going based on their stats. But at the same time, the equivalent of what is supposedly this would produce would be 1,920 kilowatts, or 1,920,000 watts. And so when you look at it, it takes about 7,200 watts to run a car. So as far as how much it could run, it could charge a car multiple times for sure. I didn't divide it to figure out exactly how many times, but that's so. I mean, it would be beneficial. It would work, and it would charge your car long enough that you could do some long trips. Definitely, around the U.S.
Now you get into an accident with that car.
Now that's the second question. So the cost benefit of it, yeah. So Wem's as far as the risk of using that fusion core. The other problem is in the game. I mean, that's part of the whole point of the game. At least I remember in 4, this got brought up a lot. Is with the fleas and things like that. The reason why we can't really drive them around is partially because what are you going to put into them? Because they didn't take this kind. It was supposed to be the other core. So you have this fuel source that you can't replace, right? Little minor deviation. Any fans of Walking Dead out there?
I've seen the first 3 seasons.
Yes, same here.
Yeah. That's all the more you need to see. What's interesting about that show, so it's been going for a lot of years now, and they're still driving cars around where they go out, they aren't refining oil or anything like that. They're not getting, they're not making gas. They're going and getting it from old pumps, supposedly. There was a show, is it Last Man on Earth? I think that's what it was called. It was a comedy about, a small group of people that survive after post-apocalyptic stuff happens. And the thing that's funny about that show is it's actually more accurate, because basically within the first year they couldn't use any of the gas because gas goes bad. And it goes bad faster than I knew. It really does go bad pretty quickly. So you can't just store it and use it, years down the road. And even when they showed in California the different nuclear sites that would be powering cities, even those would start to break down over time. And so it's not like the standard fuel would be something usable in, say, a Fallout kind of universe anyways. So you'd need something that would be able to last a long period of time. But at any rate, so that's a fusion core. If we were to use a fusion core, that's kind of our comparison. Which one of you said Mr. Fusion?
Yeah.
You'd go for Mr. Fusion, Vinz?
Yeah.
Mr. Fusion is, and I was going back and forth because in that show we got 3 different fuels that they look at for the car, right? So the very beginning, of course he has to get his fuel from terrorists. Later on, we got Mr. Fusion, and you got lightning. Oh, and technically we also have the train, right? But the one that I went with was Mr. Fusion. Mr. Fusion is able to produce several gigawatts of power for every pound of waste supplied. And that equals 1.21 gigawatts, which is equal to 1 billion watts. And it takes 7,200 watts to run a car. So you'd be able to charge your car 138,889 times just from one Mr. Fusion process. So you get 1 pound of garbage would equal being able to charge your car fully 138,889 times.
Yeah. Plus, it'd be good for the environment.
And it's good for the environment. That's the important thing. Yeah. So if you hit the car with what it's produced, probably there wouldn't be also a major fallout, right? That you'd get from the other one. But anyway.
Oh, you don't know what the flux capacitor will do.
That's right. Yeah.
If you have one.
That's right. If you, we're not. It would take you.
Keeps on hitting the car
to one point in time. That uses all of the energy at once, though. This is just for standard driving, right?
Okay. Yeah.
This will get you up to the 88.8 miles per hour, though, right?
It would be insane if you would got in a time loop where you keep repeating the accident.
You walk into the car and then you're stuck forever.
Yeah. I just want to go out for groceries, but Dad never came back.
You're constantly stubbing your toe.
Yeah, hitting your head on the ceiling, and yeah.
Oof.
Sitting on your keys. Yeah.
Just getting in and out of that. Getting out of that car. Yeah, this is also not rated for the original DeLorean either. But speaking of things made of aluminum, so out of the two fuel sources, out of the two fuel sources so far, which one would you guys pick? You think it's still Mr. Fusion of those two?
Yeah,
most likely.
But it's
okay.
All right. It's a bit of a cop out because you see the guy just throw in some stuff. Fallout actually has some more science behind it. Well,
there's science behind that.
Well, not in the movies or whatever.
You can break down stuff and it turns into fuel. That's true.
Well, it is originally a coffee maker, right, Mr. Fusion?
Yeah. It was made from a coffee maker. Yeah. From the old Mr. Coffee. It was made from. Yeah.
I still want one. It's hard to get.
I saw one for sale actually recently. Not the Mr. Coffee, but the there's a Mr. Fusion that you can actually charge your car with. Oh. It's a replacement car charger that looks like a Mr. Fusion. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
With rubbish or?
I don't think you put anything into it though. Yeah, it's just
might just be the plug.
So this next part's kind of hard because, as I thought about it, it's like, well, naturally this might sound larger. So when we get into Star Wars and Star Trek, of course, these are fuels that would somehow get you from one, or I should say engines, things that can convert fuel too. So before anyone makes a comment too, somebody's probably going to comment, well, not all these are fuel. No, that's true. Some of them, like Mr. Fusion, it produces the fuel, essentially. It produces the energy to be able to drive the car. But technically the fuel for that is garbage. And naturally I wasn't going to put that. So some of these things are engines or things that produce or create that energy. And then others are an actual energy, other types of energy source, an actual fuel. So in the case of an ion engine, for example, it's something that's actually producing. So it's the way in which it's converting energy is really what that's about. Yeah. So an ion engine, this is from Star Wars. And now I will say there's multiple fuel types and probably some of those that are out there that know a little bit about Star Wars, but at the same time, and they are thinking of gas. There is a form of gas that's used in Star Wars, the Tabana gas, which is used for weapons. That's what fuels weapons, or is what you put inside your weapons. So it's not used for the vehicles at all.
You also have dioxide, right?
Yeah. Ion engines are what's used for things like the TIE fighters, the X-Wings, not so much for the Millennium Falcon. But at any rate, the engine utilized internal fusion reactions to produce a steam of highly charged particles, which you were just mentioning, that were forced through the engine's exhaust port at nearly the speed of light. Ion engines were sometimes called ion rockets. So like I said, ion engines were known to emit mildly radioactive byproducts, requiring onboard technicians to wear protective gear. So basically, if you were to use this for your car, you'd also have to wear some kind of protective suit to prevent you from getting cancer. I guess.
Space cancer.
Okay.
Yeah. Good fuel efficiency, cancer. Those are that's the
You'll
downside.
You'll never have to refill your car, but at the same time...
But also you have to build those giant solar panels on the side of your car to make it work, right?
Yeah. Keep it going.
But the thing is, I initially when the TIE fighters were made, I mean, TIE stands for Twin Ion Engine Fighter.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that it would be like the wings, but it was the thing in the back, of course, but you only see one output.
Yeah.
Or not even one.
That blue ring is what you get kind of from the ion engines, that color that's going on.
Yeah, but
what's interesting is this is something that we actually have been able to create in real life.
Yeah.
So this isn't a fully,
sci-fi
this
concept.
is fully fictional. Or based loosely.
The same thing with the Star Trek leading a lot of scientists into figuring stuff out in real life. Like lasers didn't exist before Star Trek and Star Wars, or at least not publicly.
And your pads that you use and stuff like that too. The inspiration always comes. Yeah. But in this case, this is something that, technically it was something that the science was there that they kind of, in this case, I think the show borrowed to a certain extent.
But it doesn't go by the speed of light at all. It just pushes.
No. And this is also something I haven't seen leave any of the labs that they have that in, but you can see pictures of what it pushes out. So that's kind of cool and interesting. China's doing the most, it looks like, with that. Versus the thing that you're probably not going to see, Star Trek. You got the dilithium crystals. So the dilithium crystals powers the warp drive. Dilithium is also known as Li2. It is strongly electrophilic, diatomic molecule compressing two lithium ions covalently bonded together. Or Li2 is also known in the gas. It's in the gas phase by that point. And in the show, Data once said that they produced the equivalent of. So here's our measure of 12.75 billion gigawatts. So, that's going to take care of things. Yeah, that'll take care of things.
It's not going to go very fast, but
no. But even in the fantasy world, in Star Trek, it's a rare substance found on some planets, and not Earth. So let's say that you had a warp drive for your car. The issue would be you probably wouldn't be able to get quick access to dilithium crystals.
Well, you would, because you have a warp drive, so...
That's right, yeah.
If you're the first one to go for it, then
But you need something to be able to put inside of it, right? Yeah.
What's his name again? The one who made his first warp drive in the show.
Oh, from the not really the show, but from the universe itself.
The old Spock meets the dude, Borg attack, that kind of...
Yeah,
Cochrane?
You're looking it up.
Something?
Did you find it?
No.
I think... it kind of depends, too, on which
Dr.
universe
Cochrane.
you're talking about. Oh, okay.
Let's hope you're not getting demonetized because of that.
One.
you have to manually modify the subtitles.
Right.
Sorry about that. Zephram Cochrane. Cochrane.
You might want to stop saying that now.
It would be Cochrane. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah. We'll leave the ring out of it. Part of it.
It is raining.
Yeah. I think there's two universes. There's multiple universes, I think, in everything these days, but Star Trek has two main universes.
Yeah.
Some of the new movies are in kind of one, in one of the
Calvin
TV shows, and then you got the other one. Yep. So there's technically you got two different sources as far as who first came up with or where that kind of first came into play. But nonetheless, dilithium crystals sounding pretty good so far. It doesn't say anything about. It's still. Yeah, it doesn't say anything about it being radioactive or anything like that. People did handle it.
It does make random things explode.
They held it with their bare hands. So.
It does
nobody got cancer.
No, but whenever you get hit by something, random things start exploding and you have to move like this.
That's that's true.
Car accidents are going to be so much more entertaining.
Yeah,
lean right, lean left. Yeah.
Also, we've been hit at some place on the left side of the ship, and now all of a sudden my computer is exploding in front of me.
Yeah. The radio on the car is out. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
that's good stuff. I love
chain reactions.
Yeah. If you like crystals, and we're sticking with the crystal idea, kryptonite.
Oh, yeah.
I always thought it was interesting that I used to love Superman. I mean, like Superman was what I wanted to grow up to be when I was a little kid. You know, late 1970s. But at the same time, his only weakness was an allergy to a rock. And in that case, it was kryptonite.
Say it like
right?
that.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
That was from thousands of miles away too. It's like, yeah,
From his own home, even.
I'm gonna kind of lose interest in this. But kryptonite, most people out there would be saying kryptonite's not a power source. Yeah, technically it is. It is. So it does emit radiation. There were actually periods of time where it's been used as such. It wasn't always just focused. They didn't always just focus on how to shut down Superman. It was used for a few different things. But we don't know exactly how the atoms decay, so we can't talk about half-life or how long it would last or how long it would take to produce different things. But we can say, I mean, it does produce radiation, and it behaves like gamma or X-ray radiation, which tells us a lot about the strength of it. So the fact that you can put it inside of a lead box and have it not affect you tells me that it wouldn't be putting out too much. It would probably take more power to turn that into actual something that could run a car or do something else than it would to just to be able to use it. So I don't think kryptonite is a good power source, but I don't know.
It'd be a funky idea.
Yeah, I'm the first one. I want to put the idea out there. They did use a lot of crystals for other things. I mean, they were storing information on those things in that universe. They were. I mean, everything was crystals. So
basically, he was allergic to the Internet of Krypton.
That's right. Yeah.
USB drives.
Those were the information crystals, the purple ones.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Had his dad on them, the Kalel videos and all of his education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great effects back then.
Flying around. Yeah. You know, there's two versions of that. I'm going to edit this part out, but there was two versions of the original Superman, and one of them, the reason why they had it edited out was because the kid was naked, and then the other version he was dressed, and so. But at the same time, if they had the insight that they had to film that twice to do that, why'd they even release the one where he's naked? I don't know. That was something that popped into my head.
Different strokes, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. Well, we're going to release this in this country, so. At any rate, too many crystals, that's what I'm thinking.
Different kind of crystal.
Yeah. Arc Reactors. I'm a big Iron Man fan, in case you didn't know. So, I mean, obviously, I'm going to be somewhat for an arc reactor anyways. But on the flip side, as a power source, I mean, that's really the big crux of it. In fact, it seems like wherever he went, I can't remember what the show was I even saw recently, where they saw his arc reactor and thought to themselves, oh, I'm going to turn that into something else. I'm going to make something else out of that. You know, everyone was always trying to steal that power source. So what equivalent can we say compared to our other sources we've already talked about? This is equivalent to 50 megawatts.
Oh.
Oh wow.
Which is so that's the equivalent of so it can produce 500 megawatts, actually. It takes 50 megawatts of power to produce 500 megawatts of fusion power. So that's what it does. 200 megawatts of which could be delivered to the grid. So that means we're only looking at 200 megawatts of power that would come out of it. But that's enough to provide 200,000 people with electricity. 1 megawatt is equivalent to 1 million watts. And this would be equivalent to what it could produce would be equivalent to 50 million watts. So you could also charge an electric car 6,944,450 times. So I think that would take care of your lifetime of car charges, pretty much. Comparing that to some of our other sources, it's equivalent with a couple of them, but I think it's a safe source. I mean, isn't it? It's pretty much a safe source.
I think it's a safe source, and it's extremely easy to make, seeing as Tony Stark was able to build one in a cave with a box of scraps.
That's right. Yeah, with just basic stuff
and a
soldering tool. Yeah. So he, I mean, that's the other piece. This is small enough that you could easily store it, so it's not going to add weight to anything. And the other piece is, now the hard thing is about this is an arc reactor just doesn't just run though. So you do have to initially put that 50 megawatts into it. So the question would be, where do you get the 50 megawatts to power the thing to turn it on? If you saw Iron Man 2?
Yeah, 2 with the new
where he builds
element.
He had to pull. He built around the mansion his own what do you call that? A particle accelerator.
Yeah.
And so that he could charge it the first time. So the question would be, great. I kind of like the thing I mentioned earlier. It's like, great, I have this thing that can produce this. Now I just got to get my hands on 50 megawatts of electricity. But still, kind of that to me, that seems like the safest form that would produce the most and would be the most practical to use.
If you think that once you have one, you can charge multiple others as well. So.
Yeah, true, right? Because then you'd be able to pull 50 megawatts worth off of that and skim it onto others. That's right. Yeah. It's kind of like a 3D printer. Once when you have a 3D printer, you can print other printers.
If they work,
If they work, yeah. I think it's always funny when people say, best part about a 3D printer is if a part breaks, you can just print another. Unless it doesn't run because you broke it apart. Like, how does that work?
Yeah. You need to have 2 at least.
Yeah.
Or 4.
At any rate. That's right.
And
do you have 4? That's great. Are they really?
Yeah.
I just got my. I should have left my X tool out here, so I just got my laser cutter.
Oh, nice.
Which I always said. This is the time period even where I was saying I wouldn't get a laser cutter. I think one of our first episodes, me and Vinz, I said, not getting one. Everyone I've ever talked to always has a fire story. They're dangerous, and all this other stuff and whatever. And so I'm putting out a video to show how to make your own, and within, for under $1,000. In fact, for a few $100s. So that's something that's coming out pretty soon. But in the meantime, I've got an X tool that I'm cutting ham with today. So
okay.
Just got to show that you can do it.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more, stay tuned for that. But also check out our channel, join the community on YouTube that goes by the same name, your Geek Fix. Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at MassiveDMG_ and on his YouTube channel, MassiveDMG. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your questions, stories, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been your Geek Fix.